Welcome to the most interesting news in the world. I'm your host, Connor Hill, and today's episode is conflict or politics. Why is it called conflict or politics? I have no idea, because I thought I was going to talk about conflict, but when I went to write down the title of the show, I thought politics. And then I tried to write down one or the other, and neither would work until I said politics or conflict or politics. Woo! Man. So, before we get into conflict and politics, well, I guess maybe we'll just dive right into conflict and politics. How much does politics actually have to have conflict? Wow. So Gary Douglas and Simone Milasas were on a Creative Edge of Consciousness call. So if you don't know what the Creative Edge is, you can Google it, Creative Edge of Consciousness. It's a monthly call that Gary and Dane and Simone do that, and there's also a lot of other things, like they will also gift different portions of classes, especially Dane, some of his favorite stuff that he does through the month. They'll gift that to people. So it's a monthly call, plus Gary also comes up with 4 different processes that Simone records. I realize this sounds like I'm selling it, and I am, but also it's more like I realize that there's people out there that are like, what is that? And I'm giving you the information if you're sitting there going, what is that? So it's not just a monthly call. You get these 4 freaking rock your universe processes, and you get the recordings of them, and you get the written out form of them. And then you also get, like I said, portions of gifts from different classes that are normally like 30 to 45 minutes long, if not longer, at least like 3 or 4 per month. And there might be more stuff that you get, but off the top of my head, that's pretty full on. So if you want more information about that, go check it out. Just Google or search whatever your favorite search system is, the Creative Edge of Consciousness, and you'll find it. So that's been something that's been going on for like more than 10 years, which that's pretty cool. Every month for more than 10 years. Wow. So the call was on conflict. I don't remember the exact title of the call, but it was mostly about conflict and how much you might be creating your life from conflict. Because basically wherever you're choosing conflict, you're not actually having ease, joy, and glory, right? So maybe you've heard of the mantra. I don't like calling it a mantra, but when you look up the definition of mantra, it's a mantra. It is all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. Let's just do that right now. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. Now, conflict also kind of goes in line with like where you need to fight. Like you're like, I need to have conflict in my life, and there must be conflict. I mean, look at politics. People like to act like politics are this thing where, we will talk and we will, create great things at one. And that's where politics ends, is because it's all about conflict. Wow. And if you notice, statesmen are people that are actually, or stateswomen, if you would like to call them that, are people that are actually looking at creating the future. So something we've done in Access Consciousness is actually ask for politicians to cease and statesmen to the fore. So statesmen coming up front, which you do. I'm actually seeing that a lot all over the planet. I'm very excited because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is now like he's going to be on the ballot. So when you go in and you vote for the president of the United States, if you're from the United States, I realize that this is for Turkey. I don't know the laws and regulations in Turkey, but this is at least what they are in the United States, is that, you go in, and right now there's always a Democratic person and a Republican person, and you vote for one of those two. Now, I used to think it would actually not be all that much work to put another person on the ballot, but it's actually a lot, and it's state by state basis. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has actually gone around, and in almost every single state in the United States, he's going to be on the ballot this November. Is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. a statesman? Completely, probably not. Is he more of a statesman than the people that are at the head of the Republican and Democratic parties? Yes. That's my own awareness. You can go with your own, whatever you like. I'm not trying to tell you to vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I don't give a shit who you vote for. I'm just excited that there's somebody else to vote for other than the Democratic and Republican nominees, which is really funny because through this whole event with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. getting involved, I learned a lot that I did not know was the case. I learned a lot about the behemoths that are the Democratic National Convention and Committee and the Republican National Convention and Committee, and the almost corporate structure that is involved in them, in that I didn't realize how much they've really, I'm not going to call it a monopoly because there's two of them, but how much they've really created a biopoly, which would be two, right? Mono is one and bi is two, like monogamy and bisexual. So I'm more interested in going beyond bisexual and into trisexual, which is not three as in try would be, but I would like to try anything. So I think that's very exciting. This is I think he could be the first candidate to become not your normal Democrat or Republican to become president since, because it has happened before, since quite possibly one of my favorite presidents. I mean, not that I never met any of the presidents, but from what I've learned, Teddy Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, I like the guy. He actually, I was told by a friend, I'm very grateful for this friend because he had very differing points of views about things than I did at the time that we talked. But I've always been willing to change my point of view about pretty much anything, which is why I like the name of this show, The Most Interesting News in the World, because everything is just an interesting point of view. I was like, I never really liked saying I'm a Democrat, but I definitely sided with the Democrats, quote unquote, far more than I did the Republicans ever before. Now I definitely am so far I'm sorry, Democrats. Not like you if you're a person that's a Democrat, but the whole Democrat cult, it is a freaking cult. Oh my God. And if you're out there going, Connor, you're a member of Access Consciousness, and there's all sorts of people saying that that's a cult. Yeah, well, you know what? If you read the book, which I guarantee you won't, if you're somebody that has crazy ass points of views, I know you're not going to read this book, but you want to read Eric Hoffner's thoughts on mass movements. But like I said, you're not going to. So it's besides the point. And if anyone out there thinks Access Consciousness is a cult, read that book. Good luck reading that book, because doubt anybody will. I know you won't, but that's basically me saying, read that book. And once you've finished reading that book, come to me and point out to me in that book how it describes mass movements and exactly how access consciousness might fall into such of a cult. But I'll also point out to you where Democrats actually fall into a cult throughout that whole book. So why is it that book is so special? It just is. Once you read it, holy moly bazzoli, just kind of like eye-opening to a whole lot of stuff. It just changed my entire universe. Love that book. So I highly suggest reading it. What does this have to do with conflict and politics? Well, oh boy. So since this is the most interesting news in the world, all the points of views I just brought up and all the points of views I just have about all that stuff, everything that doesn't allow it to just be an interesting point of view, we destroy and uncreate it all. Cool. Times the guys that right, wrong, good, bad, pop, all nine shorts, boys, pub, heads, and guns. See, a lot of people are going to have a difficult time actually doing interesting point of view because they love conflict, because you can't do conflict and have interesting point of view at the same time. What would politics be like if everyone was actually doing interesting point of view? You would just go, wow, interesting point of view. That person has the point of view that they have. Interesting point of view. I have the point of view that I have. Now, I get that you're like, what do you do from there? Well, you can choose from there. You don't have to go into conflict, but a lot of people still just really enjoy it. So I'm not going to try and change it here tonight with you. That is basically, you should join Gary's call. I think he might have done a call that's called conflict. I think he did, because we did one on the Creative Edge, and then I think he just did one recently, but my brain is gone. Other than the fact we do have some very cool things coming up. Like I said, politics, who freaking cares? I don't actually like talking politics because all anybody talks about. So this is, oh, I love this. Let's talk about politics. Let's talk about what I don't like about politics. What I don't like about politics is all I've ever actually seen anyone do with politics is they try to come up with answers. They try to come up with some theoretical ideology as to what is going to solve whatever they've decided is a problem. Now, if you're sitting there and you're going, yes, of course, I hope you're saying that, because that's all I've ever seen. If you've seen something different, cool. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just pointing out people have been doing that for a very long time. It doesn't really seem like it's actually gotten us. I mean, it's gotten us to where we are, so that's cool. But it doesn't really seem like it's going to actually, I shouldn't say it doesn't really seem. I know it's not. This is what I love about access consciousness is instead of going, hey, what's the problem? How do we solve it? I mean, if you didn't know, I'm a professional civil engineer. I'm a professional civil. I'm a licensed civil engineer. Like, I have my license. I went to university for it. I did all the stuff, took all the tests. I know my stuff. Now, just because I took all those tests, just because someone takes all those tests doesn't mean they actually know anything. Okay. I hope you've at least met some people in your life that, they went through the rigors of getting certified for something, and you might notice that they still don't really know anything. It's always been my target in life to actually know something. I never cared about my grades. I just wanted to know what I needed to know, except for when it came to language, because writing and language and grammar and all that stuff, it was like people speaking Chinese to me. I was like, I do not get this. I do not get this. But when it was engineering, physics, kinematics, if you know, Newtonian physics, I was like, oh my God, this makes sense. Why does that have to do with anything? I'm just blabbermouthing. So, where was I going? Interesting point of view, politics. What would it be like if so I should say, what would it be like? I should really give you a little sense of what's actually different with regards to access consciousness. And what is different is, instead of looking at something as a problem, for from number one, the second you go, this is a problem, you've now come to conclusion. There is no question in this is a problem. And what is the problem also is not a question. An actual question would be, is this a problem? Now, the answer to that is never actually yes. A better question would be, what point of view do I have that is making this a problem? Because in reality, anything that is a problem is actually a possibility with a point of view attached, a fixed point of view. You're like, give me an example. I feel, let's see if I can. I don't have any like ready examples. I don't have like a notebook filled with examples of all my different things. So I might have to come up with one. And if we could come up with one politically, that would probably be really useful, wouldn't it? Let's do, oh my God. Yeah. So something that was very popular across a lot of states in the United States and cities, but not just in the United States, I've seen it in a lot of countries all over the place, was government, as the United States called it, government subsidized housing. So a lot of people, either in the government or not, looked at poverty and impoverished areas in the United States and people that didn't necessarily have housing and things. And they went, you know what, this is a problem. Now we're going to come up with a solution. And they came up with what they thought was a great solution. And if you know anything about government subsidized housing, and especially the ones that were like created in the 80s and 70s, I don't exactly know the dates. I'm terrible with dates. Don't get me right there. It was a disaster. So, and the reason I say disaster is because I grew up in Chicago, and my mother, we moved to Chicago, and my mother, being this like a blonde woman from Kansas, was working at she got laid off from her job after like 4 months of us moving to Chicago from Kansas. But she stuck with it. She was like, I'm moving to the big city. I'm going to be a big city girl. Because she had her graduate degree in finance, like a graduate degree. Wouldn't that be? I got to ask her if that would be like a PhD. I don't know how that works. I didn't go that far. I was like, I'm done after my 5 years. I was on the 5-year plan. It took forever. It wasn't until like after my second year that I was like, wait a second. I actually like have to put in some real work to finish in 5 years. I thought that I was taking the easy road for the first 2 years. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't really do the math on that part. Not that anybody ever empowered me to do the math either. Just a choice. So I picked up my feet and chugged harder and got done in 5 years with a lot more classes. Well, I did also have one semester that I spent in Australia, and every single class I took there, I pretty much failed. It's not my fault. It was the waves and the girlfriend. It's all her fault. It was not your fault, girlfriend. You were amazing. I love you still. Not like I need to love you close, but just so you know, I had an absolute amazing time with you and surfing. And I was more interested in my girlfriend and surfing at the time than I was in actually doing any school work. Ah, the good old days. No. So interesting point of view. I have that point of view. Actually, I know who I should blame it on. I can't blame it on her or surfing. It was definitely not either of theirs fault. It was the fact that I was prescribed to Adderall in the United States, and I have ADD, and I have this disability, and I couldn't get the same prescription in Australia. I didn't have my medication. That's why I failed. I totally probably could have taken that to the board at the school and gotten some sort of redemption because I didn't have my good old drugs. Interesting. Now let's go on a little side tangent, because that was actually a really cool point in my life, because I was actually, and if you did not know, for those of you watching, you might not be from the United States, there are a lot of people in the United States taking Adderall. A lot. Like you would be absolutely blown away if you found out the actual statistic, especially university students. Now, if you don't know what Adderall is, it is amphetamine, and it is now an over-the-counter subscription drug used to administer to kids and adults who have been, what's it called, diagnosed with attention deficit disorder and attention deficit hyperactive disorder. There you go. Oh my God, look at me. I remember the words. So, now that's actually a great example right there. I forgot my previous example where, oh, right, government subsidized housing. This is a better example. So people are looking at how ADD and ADHD kids function, and they're like, this is a problem. Well, it's not actually, because I am personally somebody who is no longer on any drugs, because a part of this is before access consciousness. And like I said, when I was in Australia, I got to the point I felt like I couldn't study without the drugs. And I didn't like that. I hated that point of view. I hated the fact that something or someone else had control over me. Not a fucking fan. I'm like, F off to the fact that like I need some drug to like get through this world. Fuck that. I was interested in something different. And the cool thing was I was also reading a book at the time about a prominent musician in the world that I hope he is still clean for his own sake. And if he's not, dude, you got to come do some access consciousness. Right Recovery for You is the best friggin' book you can read to get over some stuff. Now, will Right Recovery for You help with ADD and ADHD? Yes. There is a better book. And you can all, for anybody out there that has ADD or ADHD or a kid with any of that, you need to watch Temple Grandin's movie of the same name, I believe, just Temple Grandin, I think. Temple, maybe just Temple Grandin. Look her up, watch the freaking movie. You need to watch it at least 3 times. 3 times. There's also a book in Access Consciousness written by a certified psychologist, I think. I don't know the letters, but her name's Anne Maxwell, and she wrote a book called "You Wouldn't Teach a Fish to Climb a Tree," because it's a famous Einstein saying that, you know, a lot of people are out there trying to teach kids something they can't really do, but they can't really do it because there's a problem with them. They're just fishes, and you're trying to teach them to climb a tree. So with ADHD and ADHD kids, it's not actually attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Neither of them are actually disorders. That's just the point of view, like I talked about, the point of view attached previously that creates it as a problem, what I talked about previously. So what is ADHD and ADD really? It's really a hyperactive attention. Now, what do I mean? If you're able to, like, because I have it, it's like I'm aware of a lot more things all at once. So what people try to do is get kids and even people themselves try to focus on a single thing. That doesn't actually work. It's not really possible. It's like trying to teach a fish to climb a tree. You really need to give them more stuff. So like in Access Consciousness, a great question for myself that I'm always asking is, what else can I add to my life? Like, and really requiring just a lot more. Like I sucked at baseball. I tried to play baseball, but I couldn't because I had way too much ADD, way too much. Standing out there in the field and like waiting for that singular moment in time when a baseball is going to get hit to me. Oh my God. Now, had I had the access tools, it would have been different. I would have been able to use those tools, but I didn't have them at the time, sadly. I could talk about what that would look like now, but I'm not sure that's useful. So for those kids, and for me, I just realized everything's, you know, for ADD and ADHD, you have to realize everything's just faster. So like, notice how today's movies, take an action movie from 2024 or 2023. like, let's talk about like the Transformer movies. Those were, or any of the Marvel comic movies. Like, they're super just like action, like for 2 hours straight. So, and then you watch that movie, and then you go watch a movie that's considered an action movie from like the 1940s. A lot of people from present day have a difficult time sitting and watching those old movies because they're like, oh my God, this is so boring. There are like so few things going on. Now, I actually really like old movies. As a side note, not all old movies, but there are certain old movies where there, even though it doesn't seem like much is going on, there's actually a lot going on that can actually give you a lot of information for your life and how to handle people in your life, especially. So, not to say bad things about old movies, but just to give you a context of the the difference there, where it's like you need to in order, so one of the things that also is going to help an ADHD and an ADD kid is to actually have more space. So whether that taking them outside is going to be super helpful, like a lot, like for my son, oh my goodness, talk about a kid who, if they took into, he would get straight A's on the ADD exam, like 100%. Oh my God. And because people try to get him to like focus on one thing, or they try to get him to do the same thing, like, oh, he did a task, now get him to do it again. Now get him to do it again. You can't get him to do it again because he's like, I already did that. Now, if you want him to do something again, you make it like really fun. Like, if you're laughing or if you get really excited about it, he gets excited that you get excited, and then he'll do it again just to see your reaction because you think that's fun. So, taking him outside is really helpful because he's got a lot more space. He's always looking around at all the things around him. What's going on over here? What's going on over here? What's going on over here? And then there will be like a bird that I don't even notice fly super far away, and he goes, ooh, bird. So I'm giving you a sense of they're just aware of everything that's going on around them. And in truth, unless something is really truly required in their life, and for them to create their future, they have to force themselves to actually pay attention to it because it's not actually required. So this is why you want to always ask them a question. I realize that this turned into and I might just be giving you a lot of awareness of yourself so you don't even have the conflict within yourself. Because once you start pushing out and getting more space, there's a lot less conflict. So how much conflict do you have with you based on all of the conflict everybody else had with themselves and all the conflict that they tried to impel upon you because they decided that the conflict that you have with the self is how you have to have a life? Whew. Wow. So, what does this have to do with government subsidized housing? Well, people, when you take and you find a problem, then you now try to find a solution. And when people find solutions, they will come to thousands and thousands of conclusions, and they will look for the exact right answers for what will make their conclusion and their solution correct, so that they know it's going to be correct. I guarantee all sorts of people had all sorts of great ideas and great conclusions and great reasons and justifications for why government subsidized housing was going to work. And there were a lot of things that they were not willing to be aware of. For one, I told you about my mother working in Chicago at a bookstore. It's a bookstore that has now gone bankrupt since like COVID, I believe. It was a chain. They were all over the United States, big, really cool bookstores. And she parked If you know the history of Chicago, you know the name Cabrini Green. So Cabrini Green is quite possibly one of the most infamous government subsidized housings in the whole of the United States. But my mother, I mean, this is like the mid 1990s. So it might have not been at the high point of the Cabrini Green, but she like parked near Cabrini Green and was like parking there a bunch because that was the only place she could find parking that she didn't have to pay too much money, to the point that where she was losing money just for showing up at work, I think. And in her freaking little red Honda Civic, oh my goodness, with crank windows. It might not have had crank windows. I'm probably making things up. And she parked next to Cabrini Green a bunch of times, I believe, before finally a policeman came up to her, and like it was raining out or something, and like knocked on the window and everything. It was like, "What are you parking here for?" And she's like, "Oh, I have to park here to go to work." And he's like, "Sweetheart, this is the most dangerous place you can park in the entire city." And at the time, she knew nothing. And it was like, she knew nothing about Cabrini Green. So you can look it up, Cabrini Green. I don't really know how to spell Cabrini Green, but I'm sure you can find it, Cabrini Green, Chicago. And there are some just horror stories of the kinds of murders and domestic violence and all sorts of things that were going on here. So I don't need to go into the details, I believe, as to exactly why government housing didn't work, because that's not actually what's going to create. This is exactly why access consciousness is so different, is because we're not interested in why did it not work. All that really matters is it's not working. Okay? You don't need to know why. You don't need to know why. You don't need to know why. How much why do you have that is creating the conflict in your life? Holy cow. Wow. Because you think that once you find out the why, then you'll have it. But how many times is it that there's like 1,000 whys, only to discover that there is no why? What? When in reality, it doesn't matter why. And it's not that it doesn't matter, it's just knowing the why doesn't actually help you get to where you'd like to go. See, notice I'm not saying get to a solution, because a solution is a conclusion. What we're working towards is actually getting into an active state, not this passive state of once I figure something out, then everything will be okay. Yay, we found the holy grail of what's going to solve this poverty problem. No, all sorts of people are trying to find answers to things all the times. And I have personally only noticed that all of these answers are falling apart. Notice how the politics in the United States keep trying to find an answer for the current debt crisis that has essentially been going on since the beginning of the 1980s. Since the beginning of the 1980s, Reagan economics. I know there's a lot of people out there that think Reagan is like the best president ever, but he also ran up the United States debt, and he has essentially put it into a spiral since then. So there's your politics element. Look at me covering everything, conflict and politics. Wow, how does it get any better than that? So I do actually have an awareness of what could create a different future with all of this. And one of the things is Access Consciousness. Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, wrote a book called The How to Become Money Workbook. It's weird. Just like Access Consciousness, it is freaking weird. And none of you out there are actually going to read it. But for those of you that might, and you personally are having difficulties or issues or problems, notice how I did that, or conflict in your financial or monetary realities, get this book. It's called the Who Does This Belong To? Who Does This Belong To book. Yes, who does this who Do your monetary problems belong to the government? They should pay you all your money. Kidding. So the How to Become Money workbook. Okay, so it's not, and this, I love this book so much. And as you read it and read it and read it over and over and over and over again, you will get different layers and gain different awareness of really about just how much you're functioning from what I was talking about, where you're trying to solve a problem rather than actually looking at what you can be and do in order to create the future. So you need to start asking the question, when you see something that you've defined as a problem, what point of view do I have that's making this problem? Making this a problem? With poverty in the world, what is it? Ask a question. What is it? What do I do with it? Can I change it? If so, how can I change it? What can I do and be different today to create a greater possibility for me and everyone around me? That's something I'm asking every day. I'm always asking, what is this? What can I do with it? Can I change it? If so, how can I change it? And the other one I probably ask like once a week. So lucky me, I'm also the guy that narrated at least the English version of the How to Become Money workbook. And I'm going to read it again. It's time for me to do that book again. It's time for me to read it again. Because I'm noticing where I'm coming to conclusion and stopping, one, my money flows, and two, my possibilities. Like I really would like to talk to you more about money apparently, but I'm not going to. You need to go get the book. Or maybe that's just a different night. This is the longest show I've done yet. Wow. Pat me on the back. Apparently things are changing. So normally I can't talk this long. Normally I'm done. So what else do we have? How are you all doing? Are we all wrapped up? Are you good? Not really. Do you need me to sort of like put things in a bow and give you like a nice little thing? Okay. So what we've to really kind of like wrap up everything we've talked about tonight, noticing that politics really tends to function from find the problem, solve it, and finding problems and creating problems and then trying to find solutions that never actually work creates a lot of conflict. Really just trying to find a problem creates a lot of conflict, because how much time do you spend looking for the problems in you? You're like, where's the problem? And then you're like, I think I found one. Or like you're just creating all sorts of conflict in your life in order to make sure that you can find the problem that now you can fix and come up with a solution to fix. Or just to be like, no, I love that problem, but you've already defined it as a problem rather than looking at like, hey, that's pretty cool. So, like for me, I used to think that I was terrible at relationships, and rather than going, yes, I am terrible at relationships. I am. I'm not kidding at all. Terrible at relationships. But what if that wasn't a problem? What possibility is it? The possibility is I don't care about relationships. I care about what can we create. That's what I care about. That's all. That's pretty much all I care about. What else is possible? What can we create? What else is possible for me? What else is possible on this planet? Are any of you truly happy with the way things are going on this entire planet? Like, if you were God, would you have created this planet? Would you be like, this will be different over here? This needs to change. If so, now notice, I didn't say this is a problem. I went, that needs to change. What can I be and do to change that? Is there something I can be and do to change it? If I can't, interesting point of view, I have the point of view that it needs to change. Interesting point of view, they have the point of view that makes them do what they got going on. So one thing that might also help you with your own personal conflict is anyone you notice in poverty, maybe ask, do they want it to change? Maybe ask yourself, do I want my own poverty to change? And if you get no, talk and pod yourself. All right, everybody. This has been a very good show, I think. If you liked it, please let me know. Send me an email, connor@connorjhill.com. And if you didn't like it, send an email to my customer support at, I'm not going to read it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to my show tonight. If you made it this far, I would be surprised. And if you want to know more information about some things that are going on, I think I told you Gary has a call coming up called Conversations in Consciousness. Oh my God, you cannot miss this. It's going to be amazing. Dane has a call coming up called actually, a lot of those telecalls really have a lot of prerequisites. So I'm not sure you guys are going to be able to if you haven't had any Access Consciousness classes, you're not really going to be able to make it. That one probably has a lot of prerequisites. Well, Dane has his 15 billion calls always going on, and those things are some of my favorite things to listen to, and it's a really great place to start. So let me actually give you that. If you want to know more information, please check out Dane's 15 billion. And Simone Milasas has a profit club that she does every month. I haven't been on it, but that just sounds freaking cool. What is 15 billion? It's Dane does 2 calls per month, and I think it's like $50 for the 2 calls each month. And Simone's Profit Club, I'm not sure how much that costs. She does at least 1 call, I know. She might do 2. Check her out, Simone Milasas. Google that or go to accessconsciousness.com. All right, everybody, it's time for me to go to bed. Love you all lots. Glad you were here this show, and we'll see you next week on the most interesting news in the world.